Hey everyone, my name's Jax, and in this video we're going to be reviewing the starting specialists that you can choose from when you first begin a game. So you can see here, we are just starting a brand new game, and we're going to be looking at what's the difference between all these specialists, and which ones should you choose. A word of warning, this does include the DLC. It actually includes all 3 DLC, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is if you do not use any of the DLC, you actually don't get access to Platy. Spoiler alert, Platy, in my opinion, is the best starting specialist, and we'll be reviewing that through a spreadsheet. In that spreadsheet, I assign numbers subjectively through my opinion and my thoughts, but we review it objectively because there are numbers that we can actually review and look at. Alright, so we have all these specialists laid out, like how they appear in the game, like when you're scrolling through them at the selection. You know, Patty or Platy, Gloriosa, Fritz, Stella, Nadia, so on and so on. And then I have also put on the spreadsheet all their stats, as you can see up here. And then a personal score, which we'll get into in a sec, and a personal rating. And the things that probably stands out to you right now is there's only one S tier. And that was what I meant earlier by if you don't have the DLC, it's going to change who you select. Because if you have the DLC, you should be choosing Platy pretty much every single game. Who you choose after that can change, but for every game, Platy should be your number one choice, just based on my personal opinion. And your opinion might change depending on how you weigh these. And let's actually get into that right now. So the personal score is kind of what's driving this whole thing. And if we select it, we could see this formula, and you can, verify what the formula, is doing, and, reference all the cells. But to kind of walk through this, so if we take C2 right here, it's dividing by 100. And the reason why it's dividing by 100 is because that is the highest number that could be in this column. So this number, whatever this is, divided by the maximum number in this certain column, multiplied by a coefficient that is of my choosing. And this number is just a personal take on how I think it should relate to the other stats. I think health should be weighed about 15% of 100% on the total stats of a specialist. Going here, attack 20 is the highest for beginner specialists. Again, this is only just for the beginner specialist, because I know attack can go to 25, but we're dealing with just the beginner specialist. So we're just worried about, what do they have at the beginner time. In that case, 20 is the highest. And again, this coefficient 15 is what I'm assigning to it. I think it's, weighted about 15% of the total 100. But then we get into scavenging and research. I'm giving those higher, higher ratios, just because I think those are really important, especially at the beginning game. I think those are really important. And then, not so much for recovery, because recovery, you could be doing other things while the specialist is healing up on the colony map. Especially at the beginning of the game, specialists could be doing stuff like collecting wood or berries near pollution piles, because specialists aren't affected by pollution. So there's a lot of things that specialists can be doing if they're not on the world map. And so after you add this all up, you get a number, and if we, like a professor or a teacher scaling a test, we can make this the 100% and then scale everyone down accordingly. And so then that's how you get the rating tier. And so let's go ahead and go to a different spreadsheet where everything is kind of filtered, instead of just having them appear in their appearance order on the game. So here, you have the top tier to the lowest tier. And so Platy, as well as a lot of scientists and one scavenger, are pretty much top tier. And again, that's just because I weigh research and scavenging a lot higher than these other stats. If I were to weigh attack and recovery and health higher for, say, fighter, then fighters would probably be top tier on my list. But they're not, because I think these are far more important early game. You can get fighters later on in the game, just by buying them, or if they come to your settlement, through survivors arriving at the gate or whatever it may be. And the another thing that sticks out is scouts are pretty much low tier. The only time I would take a scout would be Sobek, and Sobek is the only beginner specialist that actually has 8 speed. And the reason why, even though he's the lowest scoring one, he would be probably the only the scout I would take. And the reason for that is because he can move quicker, he can cover more ground, and unlock more parts of the map. But aside from that, he's not going to be doing too much else of other things. I wouldn't really choose him. I can't really see a scenario where I'm actually choosing a scout. I guess maybe if the meta shifts to where, you know, uncovering the map is more important, then maybe Sobek moves up. But I think if the game included some sort of, you know, scouting stat, like, you know, how fast can they unlock a Fog of War tile, this might push up scouts. But there's no mechanic of like how fast to scout, or, you know, for that matter, any specialist, because any specialist can scout. Any specialist can uncover a hidden tile or a hidden sector. But if they were to, you know, give scouts some sort of edge, like, you know, scouting ability, and then a number to it, that would probably change this list. But for now, unfortunately, scouts are the lowest tier. So with that being said, the short and sweet is that if you have the DLC, choose Platy. And if you don't have this DLC, choose Kate. And then for both of those scenarios, you'd also choose Gloriosa. Every time you're going to choose Gloriosa. And the reason for that is because she has 200 scavenge. And these two are pretty much already scientists. I mean, yes, Platy is considered a scavenger, quote unquote scavenger, but look at her stats. She has the same science research as a scientist. And she also has really good scavenge too. Technically, in my opinion, I think Platy should be labeled as a scientist, not a scavenger. But they're giving her more scavenge. And I also think just because she's behind the DLC, that's also why they're making her higher tier. But I don't know, could be wrong. But that's just what I think. Just my opinion. And Kate is also higher tier just because she has a little bit more attack. If you can see, they all pretty much have the same stats, except Kate has a bit more attack and a bit less recovery. Again, I just don't think recovery's the best thing because you could still be using the specialist regardless. But in a fight, say if you are fighting someone, the most important thing is health and attack. If Kate is able to take out a bandit because she has higher attack than them, then that's going to be great. And that's ultimately what matters during a battle too. So having, you know, a bit of an edge on attack for the cost of recovery just bumps her up, in my opinion. She and Platy are, you know, we could technically make her an S tier for the non-DLC people. Like, you're not playing with DLC, she is technically S tier, you know. So, you know, put that there. She's technically S tier if, you know, no DLC. But if there's DLC, then she gets bumped back down to A tier. So just keep that in mind. And then Hex is kind of in a weird spot, right? Because she's the only B tier scientist while all the other scientists are A tier. She's in a weird spot just because if you look at her other stats, low HP, low scavenge, low speed too, and but everything else is okay. So just numerically, she just comes out lower, unfortunately. Another great thing about Gloriosa, she has 7 speed. If you look at everyone else, pretty much 6 speed until you get to scouts. She's the only other person that has 7 speed. And so that's really good, especially, you know, she could technically off-roll, quote unquote, as a scout with that because she has 7 speed, which also puts her up really high. So those are the 3 that I would be choosing every game. I don't see a scenario where I would take anyone below A tier. Again, Sobek might be the only case because of his speed and just uncovering the map quicker, but that's not really a meta to uncover the map quicker. There's no real benefit for uncovering the map quicker. In fact, part of me thinks that when you uncover the map quicker, the game becomes harder. So part of me actually doesn't think you should cover it. There's no real, I don't really have any justification for believing that uncovering the world map quicker actually makes the game harder. It's just something I've felt or noticed. Maybe it's just how the game progresses, but I don't really have a use case where uncovering the map is any benefit, that provides any benefit aside from like, hey, I ran out of resources or science points, then hey, I get it. But that's when you can just use literally anyone else to scout the map. And then for fighters, you know, you're going to get a fighter later on in the game anyways. You're probably going to get it relatively soon, probably before mid-game. And then at that point, you can just get a single fighter and use them to clear bandit camps that are nearby. Or you can use you know, anyone with a 12 attack. I mean, that's the next one. Now there is a decent jump from 20, you know, from 12 to 20 compared from 9 to 12. So fighters do have that edge. Your chances of grabbing a fighter are pretty high by the time you actually need one anyways. I don't really see a scenario where I'm grabbing a fighter. Interestingly enough, these scavengers actually scored pretty low just because their science research is pretty similar to fighters, so in that regard they're kind of matched. Their scavenge is also only one tier higher than fighters, but then fighters have more HP and attack by a good amount. So I think that's what's pushing up fighters higher than actual scavengers. So if you are, you know, if you're dead set on taking a fighter, these ones aren't too bad. I mean, if you're looking at it, Baron and Kita are pretty much tied, with Scrappa not being too far behind. Fritz kind of falls behind just because he's got a really low scavenger and really low research, so I don't think Fritz is a good choice. And so that's my take on the starting specialist and surviving the aftermath. Did you learn anything new, or perhaps did you determine that you want to use a different specialist now based off this? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. If this helped you, I'd greatly appreciate a like. And if you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button. And as always, have a good one, and I'll see you next time.